We are back, Sam Seder on the Majority Report. It's the fun half. And how do you know? Because I said it in that fashion. Emma Vigeland out today. Alex G. Treehouse. Sam. Hey, Sam. I wrote you 6 years ago and told you I had just started as a masonry apprenticeship and that I didn't have the funds, and you gave me a gifted membership. I really appreciate your show. That's part of our masonry apprenticeship support program that we have specifically for future Masons. I really appreciate your show and crew helping represent the needs and dreams of working people and for breaking up my boring work life. I have to say that, like, in a different life, I mean, maybe this one, masonry or carpentry.
Landscaping for me.
But that's the thing. Masonry, there's a lot of masonry work in carpentry. I mean, in landscaping.
Yeah.
In fact, if you don't know masonry and you're trying to do landscaping, I'm not going with you. Because the idea that I'm not going to have some need for mason work in that, in my gardens, because I'm looking for something that's like sort of going to look like Versailles. You understand what I'm saying?
Versailles.
Like, I want my garden to look like what do you call it up here? I can't remember the name of it now. The Botanical Gardens. Do you know when you walk back there? Have you been there?
Yeah.
There's a lot of masonry there.
There's.
Chef Solo. That's like a classic. That's exactly what you were saying at the top of the show. I think you just give me like, thumbs up emoji. Chef Solo. I've never formed a union, but I can imagine there being some benefits to having an ally who is valued by management. Someone organized alongside the union, but who strategically makes the no vote. Excuse me. And takes the carrot from corporate, maybe while keeping meticulous notes and documentation. Well, yes. A double agent's always good, but it's a little bit difficult to work on. But yes, of course. Goose, news half finishing at record time. That means more time for phone calls, right, Sam? Right? Yes. We will get to phone calls with an hour left. So I don't want anybody to be on hold for too long. This is amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, last night, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz was on Laura Ingraham explaining how somebody broke in to his Signal chat. Okay, let's hear from
It's like the Jason Bourne thing where he's like, oh, he's on the building outside of me, and it's Jeffrey Goldberg being like, why did I get added to this?
Exactly. Instead of Jason Bourne being like there with a scope, it's literally
confused Atlantic editor.
Exactly. Being pulled into the office and told all the secrets. Go ahead.
Some of it. I just talked to Elon on the way here. We've got the best technical minds looking at how this happened. But I can tell you for 100%, I don't know this guy. I know him by his horrible reputation, and he really is the bottom scum of journalists. And I know him in the sense that he hates the president, but I don't text him. He wasn't on my phone, and we're going to figure out how this happened.
So you don't know what staffer is responsible for this right now?
Well, look, a staffer wasn't responsible, and look, I take full responsibility. I built the group. My job is to make sure everything's coordinated.
But how did the number? I mean, I don't mean to be pedantic here, but how did the number?
Have you ever had somebody's contact that shows their name, and then you have somebody else's number there?
I never make those mistakes.
Right? You got somebody else's number on someone else's contact. So of course I didn't see this loser.
Pause it for a second.
It looked like.
Pause it for a second. He's arguing now, oh, this is an interesting lie that I hadn't caught the first time around. He's saying that the contact he had, let's say, I don't know who it was he supposed it was supposed to be.
It's Jeff Goldblum.
Well, that's the thing, is he's making it sound like he had the wrong number inserted that he had Goldberg's number inserted in somebody else's contact, but it said JG. So maybe it's the exact same JG. But again, let's be clear here. They're using an app that literally my child has access to. And as opposed to the highest level of clearance of people in the government. And so when you're using a commercial app, this is one of the dangers that is connected to your contacts. Like I won't even let, honestly, like I won't even let like Venmo have connection to my contacts. Like I won't let, I won't. And they're using an app to plan and to exchange plans of a imminent attack on another country. And they're using this app like, should we connect your contacts? Oh, yeah, I'll definitely do that. I mean,
More convenient.
what if it was like sent to his nanny or it was like dog walker? Or just like somebody he hasn't seen, like, oh, I met this person on whatever it is, Tinder. I know, there's just a first name to it. I can't remember who it was. We only chatted once or twice, but okay, I'll let her have access, or him for that matter. I don't know. Access to the country's most important secrets.
When the planes fly.
Go ahead.
And then you have somebody else's number there.
I never make those mistakes.
Right? You got somebody else's number on someone else's contact. So of course I didn't see this loser in the group. It looked like someone else. Now, whether he did it deliberately or it happened in some other technical mean is something we're trying to figure out.
So your staffer did not put his contact information.
No,
but how did it end up in your
that's
phone?
what we're trying to figure out.
Okay.
Pause it.
But that's a pretty big problem.
That is what we've got the best.
I'll tell you something, and we got to go back. This is because let this thing run because this is so pathetic. I've never seen anything quite like this. Ingram is definitely trying to open the door to him to throw an underling under the bus. And Waltz doesn't even have a suggestion, it seems like, as to who did it, because he so blatantly did it and it's so quite clear. And if it really, like, he doesn't know which staffer is willing to take the fall yet.
How to lie about it.
Exactly. He's waiting for one of his staffers to go like, hey, Chief, I'll take the fall on this one.
Oops, I pasted Jeffrey Goldberg, right? His number into the wrong contact.
But also a reminder, like, well, you shouldn't be using this anyways. And right in the chat, you can see where he said this conversation scheduled to disappear in 4 weeks. That's also illegal. Like, there's so much illegality about this, never mind total incompetence. There's both illegality and incompetence. And there's this mishmash, and now they're pretending like somehow Jeffrey Goldberg, and I would be willing to bet, I don't know Jeffrey Goldberg, I don't think I've ever met him. He's certainly not in my contacts that I'm aware of. But I'd be willing to bet that like he has trouble like even just like logging into his Netflix account if it's not. The idea that he somehow figured out some way of hacking into and first of all, you can't hack into a group like that. It doesn't work that way.
He's implying that, yeah, he somehow made him enter his number wrongly in the contact form.
And here's the other thing. I don't know enough about this, and I've read contradictory reports. But I don't know that you could load Signal onto a government-issued phone. And if they're on a private phone, those phones are what are susceptible to being hacked.
Doesn't matter how secure or not Signal is.
Exactly. Because they're on the phone in that instance.
Very common to just like have a bug that tracks your keystrokes or something like that.
Yeah, continue. Sorry.
Technical mean is something we're trying to figure out.
So your staffer did not put his contact
not.
information.
No,
but
no,
how did
no,
it
no.
end
Of
up
course
in
not.
your
Well, that's
phone?
what we're trying to. That's what we're trying to figure out.
Okay, but that's a pretty big problem.
That is what.
If there
That's
are numbers,
what we've got the best technical minds, right?
That's
and that's
disturbing.
where I mean, I'm sure everybody out there has had a contact where it was said one person and then a different phone number.
But you've never talked to him before, so how's the number on your phone? I mean, I'm not an expert in any of this, but it's just curious. How's the number on your phone?
Well, if you have somebody else's contact and then somehow it gets
someone
sucked
sent
in,
you that
it gets
contact.
sucked in.
Was there someone else supposed to be on the chat that wasn't on the chat that you thought was
So
on
the
the chat?
person that I thought was on there was never on there. It was.
I just want to go back to the sucked in part because I
No,
even heard about
listen,
this happening.
You know how you get your phone number sucked in. You get your phone number sucked in. That's how I met my first wife.
Yeah, it gets sucked in. You know,
Yeah, like your phone number got sucked into my phone, and that's how I.
there's a whole Reddit thread about
oh
it.
my God, are you not aware
Out there
of this?
has had a contact where it was said one person and then a different phone number.
But you've never talked to him before, so how's the number on your phone? I mean, I'm not an expert in any of this, but it's just curious. How's the number on your phone?
Well, if you have somebody else's contact and then somehow it gets
someone
sucked
sent
in,
you that
it gets
contact.
sucked in.
Was there someone else supposed to be on the chat that wasn't on the chat that you thought was
So
on
the
the chat?
person that I thought was on there was never on there. It was this
Who
guy.
was that? What person?
Well, I'm not. Look, Laura, I take responsibility. I built the group.
Okay.
So but look, that's the part that we have to figure out, and that's the part that embarrassing, yes, but Pete and I are veterans. We know these operations. He has been an excellent Secretary of Defense, and this was an operation that, I mean, it amazes me. I guess the Democrats were fine to leave all the sea lanes shut down. We're fine to have destroyers fired on dozens of times by this terrorist group, and fine to have Iran keep supplying them missiles. That was okay. The president takes decisive action. And now we're seeing some real success in taking down their air defenses, opening the sea lanes, taking out their leadership. We don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about this.
Now, the Atlantic told us in part that attempts to disparage and discredit us in our reporting follow an obvious playbook by elected officials and others of power who are hostile to journalists and First Amendment rights of all Americans. They're saying don't blame the messenger.
He's trying to change it, and she's bringing it back. I mean, it's interesting. She seems a little skeptical about this. I don't think that she's the ally that Waltz thought she was. Just go back a little bit more.
Now, the Atlantic told us in part that attempts to disparage and discredit us in our reporting follow an obvious playbook by elected officials and others of power who are hostile to journalists and First Amendment rights of all Americans. They're saying don't blame the messenger. Your response to them?
Lied about Russia, lied about Gold Star families, lied about even as last year in terms of the president paying for the family of a Gold Star family that he absolutely did. I mean, lie after lie after lie.
Have they ever apologized for any of that?
No. I mean, this is, do we care about the mainstream media? Do we care about the Atlantic? What I care about is staying focused on mission, accomplishing the president's agenda, getting these things done, cleaning up the Biden messes from Afghanistan to Ukraine to the Houthis to the border to China all over South America.
Also, and obviously, to make sure that all of these plans to do these things are communicated to just about anybody.
Who cares about the mainstream media, like if they're accidentally included in your secret
We
chats?
don't need the mainstream media. We can bypass them by directly including everyone on our group chats.
I'm so sick of them.
That is just amazing.
It gets sucked in. Those phone numbers get sucked in.
Can you imagine what would happen if this dude actually went on to like well, I don't know. We should invite him on this program. I'm willing to bet he's not going to come on.
You'll probably get his number pretty easily somehow.
Well, we just put it into the suck-in machine. Can't you?
I'm going to get some numbers sucked into my phone this weekend, but
That is just amazing. Amazing.
it gets sucked in. You know, the thing that happens to phone numbers and contacts.
News signal group Who Dis. Hi, Sam. Someone you debated in 2022 is currently in Yemen right now having formal meetings with the Houthi leadership and giving speeches urging U.S. military personnel in the Red Sea to refuse their orders to attack the country. I'm curious to know your thoughts on that.
Jackson Hinkle.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's crazy.
What?
He's become sort of a star in the rest of the world. It's pretty horrific, actually.
That's pretty amazing. Well, I don't know what to say. Sam's
Good luck.
Hey, good luck. Sam's basement son. Your parents must be very, very proud with your success. Sam's basement son. Sam, Trump did say this is the most transparent administration. Gang of friends. All this talk of sucking sounding like a This Is Revolution episode. Hey, folks, if you want to be a part of this program, the number is 646-257-3920. We, of course, also have a special number for our Rumble listeners. That is 646-257-3920. The rest of you, it is, of course, 646-257-3920. Here is Elizabeth Warren yesterday. There was a meeting in the Finance Committee for Donald Trump's confirmation hearing. What's this guy's first name? Bisigno Nano? And Frank Bisignano. This is coming on the day of a report in the Washington Post yesterday. We talked about it, that there have been multiple breakdowns in the Social Security Administration computer system in the past 2 or 3 weeks. There have been bigger lines. There are big problems now, obviously, because the new policy of not allowing people to identify themselves via the phone. They are jamming up the system. And this is what we knew they were going to do. Donald Trump's out there. I'm not going to touch Social Security, but when they talk about waste and fraud, and then they go in and they hamper the Social Security Administration, the waste and fraud stuff is just lies. We went through this yesterday. The Social Security Administration was so tight on improper payments that a 1% rate of improper payments, 2/3 of which were clawed back, including an overpayment of $14 in Rhode Island, I think it was. And when Doge or the Republicans or whoever you want to call them, Musk, go after the Social Security Administration and make cuts and get rid of the Inspector General and this and that, what they are trying to do is cut Social Security for people. And really, I think it's even more nefarious than that, because what they're really trying to do is destroy the relationship between citizens and their Social Security so that they can set it up to attack it. All right, let's hear Elizabeth Warren.
Suppose this same 65-year-old calls the helpline to apply for Social Security, but he's told about the new Doge rule, so he has to go online or in person. He can't drive, he has trouble with the website, so he waits until his niece can get a day off to take him to the local Social Security office. But Doge closed that office, so they have to drive 2 hours to get to the next closest office. When they get there, there are only 2 people who are staffing a 50-person line, so he doesn't even make it to the front of the line before the office closes, and he has to come back. Now, let's assume it takes our fellow 3 months to straighten this out, and he misses a total of $5,000 in benefits checks, which, by law, he will never get back. So, Mr. Bisignano, is that a benefit cut?
Well, first of all, Senator,
Is that a benefit cut? I'm sorry, my time is limited here. That's an easy question, yes or no? Is it a benefit cut?
I have no intent to have anything like that happen on my watch,
I
ma'am.
understand that. Is it a benefit cut?
I'm not sure what to call it.
A boo-boo? Is that a boo-boo?
I don't intend to have it happen, but I won't characterize it that way in case it does.
Oh, whoopsie. Can I call it a whoopsie?
Cheer up, it might never happen.
Oh, I would call it mission accomplished. Oh shit. Did I say that out loud? This is the plan. I mean, they're executing it right now. This is why what Chuck Schumer did was so stupid and incompetent. Because they're going to keep doing this. And unless we have more opportunities for people like Elizabeth Warren to go out and have these dog and pony shows, there's no way for the American public to know this. That one individual that she talked about, who loses $5,000 of Social Security payments, has no idea that this is happening to tens of thousands of other people. Hundreds of thousands of other people. There's no way. There's just no way. This is why what Chuck Schumer did was so incompetent. And incidentally, guess what today is? It is James Carville's 30-day, don't worry for 30 days birthday, where he advised people like Chuck Schumer, just give him 30 days. This whole thing's going to fall apart. I mean, what is this, number 6? Yeah, let's do this. This is, and maybe he just does it just because he wants to stick the knife in a little bit on Chuck Schumer. But when Chuck Schumer voted and gave cover and led 10 Democratic senators in approving the Republican, I want to call it a continuing resolution, but it really wasn't. It was a Republican budget. And basically saying it would be disastrous if they shut down the government. People wouldn't get their Social Security checks. Remember that? And now people are not getting their Social Security checks, except for instead of it being a national story, you got to dig into the Washington Post, deep into it. Or you got to watch the Finance Committee meeting, which I'm sure a lot of Americans are doing, to know that this is a systemic plan. And here we see on Greg Kelly on Newsmax interviewing Donald Trump.
So I wrote him a letter when he said we shouldn't go out, and he was right about that. He was killed, but I wrote him a letter saying, "Dear Chuck, congratulations, you made a great and wise decision, and it's really good for the country what you did." Well, he got excoriated because of that letter, because they thought I was doing a little bit of shtick on him, and I wasn't. It was a serious letter. He did the right thing, but he's been absolutely killed by his party. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he makes it or doesn't make it. I really don't know. So I wrote.
I wonder, has he called him a Palestinian since then, or was that what Schumer got out of this? I was very worried that the Baileys thought that I was Palestinian. So
Good check.
we will win. I don't know if there's enough pressure. I mean, now there's nothing for him to do. He's just on a book tour, or, taking the time that he thought he was going to be on a book tour. Unbelievable. M. Bear. Should be noted that Trump signed an executive order to place SSI and SSDI payments under threat and give Treasury full power over stopping those payments from going out. Social Security disability and Social Security for those who are injured, as opposed to retirement, is always the first that they attack sort of frontally. We'll keep an eye on that. Calling from a 424 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 424.
Hi, my name is Luis Medell.
Is what?
Luis Medell,
All right, Lise, where are you calling from?
California.
California. Lise from California. What's on your mind?
I'm a DACA recipient, and I recently renewed my DACA, and I don't even know if it even matters. I don't even know if in the next 2 years I'm going to be able to renew. So I'm kind of scared.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I think it's up for it. Yeah.
Tell us your story. You're a DACA recipient. Well, when were you brought to this country?
I was 1.
You were 1 year old?
Yeah.
And so, and that's an excuse that you didn't know any better?
Yeah. Yeah. I should have stopped my parents.
I mean, I try and teach this to my kids. I'm surprised your parents didn't tell you. Like, you can't, at one point you're going to grow up. And, you let your parents, drag you around, obviously. Where are your folks from?
They're from Acapulco.
From Acapulco?
Mexico.
And
Yeah.
have you ever been back down there?
No. I would have to get some sort of permission to go over there and visit. But somebody has to be sick or something like that, or a wedding.
So it is conceivable that you will be deported to a country that you haven't been to since you were 1 year old. How old are you now?
I'm 23.
So it's conceivable that after 22 years, you could be deported to this country that you have no familiarity with. I mean, other than, I think like in passing, and maybe your parents have told you.
Culturally. Yeah.
So what do you what goes through your, on a daily basis? Like, tell me a little bit about how you're experiencing this, because I got to imagine, based upon the way that I deal with things, like I wouldn't be able to sleep. I mean, I would be nervous. I mean, just give me a sense of what kind of anxiety you must be going through.
Surprisingly, I'm not that scared. Even though I'm more scared of being deported to a different country or being taken to a prison system compared to being deported. I think best case scenario, I'd be deported where right now we have a president, Claudia Sheinbaum, who I'm very happy with. I wish we had something like that here in the United States. So I'm kind of jealous of that. But if I end up in Mexico, I think that's my best case scenario.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess there's
I'm more worried about my parents.
Yeah, what's how old are your parents?
They're like 45.
Oh, wait. And they must be worried too, because they don't even have DACA, right? DACA's just at least there's at least some administrative sort of status that you're in terms of, and I think I don't
even know if that matters.
Yeah, I don't know that it matters either. I mean, just as a political, just like as a public relations, it feels like it's harder to that DACA, that they wouldn't go after DACA folks until
Trump said he wasn't going to go after him, but I don't trust him at all.
No, I don't blame you.
No.
So what else are you doing in the meantime? Are there, how are your folks doing? Like what do you guys do in this situation?
Well, I keep my parents informed of what's the possibility of what can happen. I bring up, maybe we should go to Mexico, and I look into how much it would cost to live there, what sort of welfare system do they have. I know that if you get deported, you can download an app, and they'll assist you. I think the president of Mexico said that she would help out people who get deported or whatsoever. So I am looking into it.
What kind of work do you and your parents do?
I work in CSC. It's crowd management at concerts.
Okay.
Different events. Yeah, my mom, she doesn't feel safe enough to work right now, so we don't know.
Well,
that's it. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
All right. Well, I appreciate the call, and good luck. And I'm sorry you and your family are going through this.
Well, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Hang in there. Freaking nightmare.
Yeah. Senseless.
Calling from a 308 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it is Kowalski from Nebraska.
Kowalski from Nebraska. What's on your mind, Kowalski? Are you on a tractor right now?
I am. Is it that obvious?
No, I just knew it's late March and there's sunlight out, so you better be.
Yeah. Even though the economy is collapsing 1 week from now, we figured we might as well just pretend like the world's going to keep on spinning. So
why do you think the economy's collapsing in a week?
That's when the tariffs are supposed to go into full swing.
Every day I feel like there's another story about how he's backing off the tariffs.
Well, you see, I have a mixed mind on this, and that's actually the point that I was calling in, because part of me feels like picking April 2nd makes sense. You don't want to do it April 1st. Everyone will think it's a joke. But if you go April 2nd, that's the second day of Q2 for, the fiscal year. And if you were going to crash the economy, that would probably be the best time to do it. Because if you get prices dirt cheap in about a month and everybody starts buying up all the assets, maybe by the end of Q2, you could start seeing a slight rebound, especially if they start cutting Social Security taxes to try to boost consumer spending. You might, by summer, have a decent economic system, or an economic prospect for a year. And then after that, I think we all just die. But after this whole text chain got released, part of me thinks that they don't have a plan and they're just winging it. So I was kind of curious what your thoughts were.
Your point being that the level of incompetence that they showed in that text chain makes it very, very hard to believe that there is some type of strategy that's being employed here. I think, honestly, the only strategy that you can project onto these people was written in Project 2025. I have a feeling this tariff thing is something that they thought they could sort of control, and so far they've been able to, right? Largely keep Trump from insisting upon it. But I think what, you clearly see from that text chain too, that they're all waiting for Stephen Miller to come in and give them what the actual word is. And for Stephen Miller to have that type of influence in the context of the ability to sort of say, you guys should go to war or bomb something, I don't know. Maybe Stephen Miller is the one who says the thing about the tariffs. Maybe I don't know. I don't know how to anticipate this. I don't think that we can underestimate the level of incompetence and sort of fly by the seat of the pants that they're going on. I do think that I can't imagine Musk wants these tariffs, but maybe he doesn't care. I do think that there is a theory I've seen out there that the Trumps have no problem crashing the economy because they have their own sort of parallel economy that is existing. Their money is not Their wealth is not
that is more where I'm leaning because I personally think Trump wants the U.S. to be more like the Russian Federation, where oligarchs, like, they have far more control over the Russian Federation than like our oligarchs have over the United States, just because we have checks and balances. But if you get rid of that, yes, the U.S. becomes overall weaker, but you have more power in the system and you can be wealthier. Like right now, we're not sure who the wealthiest person in the world is. It's either Elon Musk or it's Vladimir Putin. We don't know because he technically does own a ton of the Russian economy just outright. So, like, I could see that being the ultimate goal, but then again, they're so incompetent, I have no idea. And I got to go quick, but I wanted to mention something about Social Security before I go. A lot of people have said things along the lines of, if you're going to retire, why go with Social Security, which can barely beat inflation? And they always point out that the market grows at an average of about 10%. I'm assuming you've heard these numbers, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Here's the issue with that logic. Social Security is the reason why the market was capable of growing at 10%, because there was an economic floor that an economic recession can hit before this creates some spending which will keep the economy functioning until Congress or whatever body needs to take action. For instance, if 2/3 of elderly people would be impoverished without this, that means that they have enough capital to buy food, pay rent, pay bills, which means the economy can only slip so far. These types of stimulus programs have been pivotal at keeping the U.S. economy chugging along. We know austerity does not work. So anybody who's calling for like an end of this and throw everything into the market, you will end up with a more boom and bust cycle, because a capitalist system has to exist within a boom and bust cycle because of how borrowing money works on an economy. I'm not going to go into it because I'm not a professor, but boom and bust is part of the system. It is not a flaw in the system.
And your point is that when you have something like Social Security and these other things, it provides basically almost like a automatic stabilizer. Not exactly, but more or less in terms of the overall economy.
Yes, logistics chains will not collapse because people aren't buying food. Logistics chains won't collapse because they're not able to buy housing. You won't see as big of a pull on other social resources like food stamps. So in a lot of ways, you could not achieve those economic gains in the private sector without the public sector basically like Atlas holding everything on its shoulders. And on the other end of that, as a person who lost a parent when they were 10, I had a brother who was 14, 12, and a younger sister at 8 at the time. My mom got the benefit of getting those Social Security payments that my dad would have been entitled to. And that was very, very helpful when we were going through a very hard time in our lives. And the fact that they want to deny this to God only knows how many people lost their parents during COVID is just a level of cruelty that I frankly find absolutely abhorrent. And that blatant cruelty is just like, if they believe themselves to be godly, I don't want to know their God. So
Kowalski,
that is it.
Thanks for the call. Good luck with the crops.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. Let's do Tim Pool first, and then we'll. There was a new report that just came released. They're finding out stuff about the people who were deported to El Salvador. And really saying even deported is just sort of almost like, I don't know.
Just disappeared to?
Yeah. I mean, in many respects, disappeared to, because when you're deported, there's a process. You're not just scooped up or dragged from a jail or detention center and put on a plane. There's actually a process. So deported actually makes it sound better than it is. It is being reported now that, I think this is from the Washington Post. There was a young couple, spent 2 years in Colombia before applying. They left Venezuela in 2021. They spent 2 years applying for refugee status in Colombia, right? They're doing everything they should here. And to be clear, if you step 1 foot in the United States and ask for refugee status, it is U.S. law, it is international law that you get due process for that. These people did it outside the country, which is even harder to do. They were in Colombia for 2 years, running from Venezuela, applying for refugee status. They got that status. They'd gone through all the interviews with U.S. authorities in Colombia as part of an extensive background check. And they finally were awarded refugee status. And so they flew. This is what they all claim, right? All of these xenophobes claim they want people to do. Get in line, do it the right way, et cetera, et cetera. Legal status granted. Fly to the U.S. Get off the plane, flying into Houston. Upon arrival, an immigration officer asked the man, it was a couple, the question that changed his life in moments. Do you have any tattoos? He had already been asked that by U.S. authorities in Colombia as part of an extensive background check. Now he gave the same answer. He lifted his shirt and pants, showed the immigration officer tattoos on his chest, leg, and arms. A crown, a soccer ball, and a palm tree. Then immigration officials decided the tattoos were evidence enough to suspect he might be a member of Tren de Agua. And his girlfriend, threatened with detention for months, agreed to be deported back to Colombia. He spent the next almost couple of months in 3 different immigration detention centers in Texas. Then on March 15th, he was put on that plane to El Salvador. I don't know if they found him. Apparently CBS News, maybe this is from CBS News, got its hands on the entire list of all Venezuelans sent to El Salvador. And this guy's name was on it. The Catholic Charities of Dallas had been expecting to help this guy and his girlfriend transition into life in the U.S. when they learned that he had been detained and the girlfriend deported. Several Venezuelans have told the Miami Herald, I guess this is in the Miami Herald, sorry, that family members were deported to El Salvador despite not having any criminal record in the U.S. or elsewhere. Jersey Reyes Barrios, a professional soccer player from Venezuela, took part in peaceful demonstrations against Maduro's regime in 2024. He was detained, tortured with electric shock and suffocation. He was released. He fled to the U.S. seeking protection. Reyes registered with CBP-1, that mobile app developed by U.S. Customs and Border that allowed migrants to schedule appointments at port of entry. He used the app to secure an appointment, and then on the day of his scheduled entry, he presented himself to CBP officials, but his tattoos raised alarm. He was sent to the Otay Mesa Detention Center near San Diego. Reyes was then treated as a criminal. After applying for asylum in December 2024, he was deported to El Salvador last week without any notice to his lawyer or family. Here is Tim Pool talking about the judge that basically said, what are you doing? Sending people without any due process. Whatever, like Tim's, let's get the deontological approach to this, shall we?
Judge contends Nazis got more due process than Trump deportees did.
Don't care.
Really? And that's the answer I was looking for, Phil.
Don't care.
Who cares? Donald Trump's trying to deport Tren de Aragua. There's apparently arguments that there's a gay Venezuelan barber asylum seeker who's been wrapped up in this and sent to a supermax in El Salvador, which is terrifying.
Pause.
I don't
Look at
want.
the laughing.
Well, first thing I got to say is, why do
the
you
best
try
part
to,
is, well, I don't know who that other dude is. The guy. Do you know who that guy is?
The guy with the hat is Phil Labonte.
Right. Yeah, that guy I've seen before, but I don't know who the guy with the brown shirt is. Tim's saying this, and Tim's saying like, "This is horrifying," but before he gets there, the guy starts laughing.
Yeah.
It's funny. You know, I wonder what a deontologist would say about this, because if your principle is that there should be due process, then there should be due process. Why are you changing it based upon who it is?
Yeah.
Does that seem deontological to you, Matt?
If you read Plato's Republic, you would know this is hilarious.
Oh,
actually.
sorry, go ahead.
exploit my country and lie to get in here? Because if you're from Venezuela, Mexico is right there, and you're safe. But so I think he's a liar who committed a crime against this country. I don't think he deserves to go to Supermax. But at the same time, am I really going to come out right now and argue that Donald Trump should not use the fullest extent of his powers to undo the damage that Biden caused?
Joe Biden's fault. Joe Biden allowed millions of people to come into this country illegally. Now we have to get rid of them. And that means that the chances of people that are not here illegally or that are not criminals or whatever, they're going to get wrapped up too. And
well, pause it. Wait a second. No, wait. When he says chances are there are people who here are not here illegally. In other words, legal, maybe citizens, maybe legal residents, maybe legal refugees are going to get wrapped up in this. He's trying to justify that. How broad do you think the word people is in his mind? Does he think that like anybody who is Venezuelan in this instance, even if you're here legally, even if you become a citizen, that it's just Venezuelans? When he says people, or does he think that like anybody who speaks Spanish from any Latin American or Central American or South American country, you are the people? Or does he think like the guys in the studio, these white guys? Does he think like, even if you guys get wrapped up in this, even if they come from me, because
got to do what you got to do.
I don't know. Do I get a tattoo? Does this guy Phil have a tattoo on? Even if they come from me, it's all part of like, we just have to pay this price because of what Joe Biden did.
Yeah, Jan 6.
I have a feeling he would probably pick, when he says people, he's talking about a very specific subset of people who are, he had an interesting phrasing, not here illegally.
That means that the chances of people that are not here illegally or that are not criminals or whatever, they're going to get wrapped up too. And hopefully we can fix it after the fact, and that they don't have too much actual like irreparable damage or whatever, or repercussions that can't be remedied. But there are going to be errors when you're trying to remove millions of people. And I'm sorry that that's going to happen, but that's going to happen.
No, you're not.
And you can't avoid it. We are fallible humans. If you want to blame someone, blame Joe Biden and blame Democrats who have been pro illegal immigration for at least 10 years.
And they lost 300,000 children.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say.
Okay, pause it. Hold on for a second. I don't know who that dimwit is either, but the idea of lost 300,000 children. There is not 300,000 children that are lost. It is that the DHS did not have the capacity to be tracking all 300,000 children. They don't have records on where these children are any more than they have records on where any other children are. They address these instances when the children are missing. These are not missing children. This is just simply a misinterpretation. It's been going on for 3 or 4 years. It was misinterpreted.
It's too useful to interpret correctly.
Exactly. They're not going to correct themselves. But again, this other guy, this Phil guy, some people are going to get wrapped up. Innocent people.
Gonna get sent to El Salvador. Whoops.
Okay. We go. Like, that dude looks a lot like, I don't know.
Jan 6er.
Yeah. Or, the Proud Boys. Maybe we should roll them up. Look, it's going to happen, folks. People are fallible.
Look, you shouldn't have did Jan 6, and now we just have to just roll over the Constitution.
People are fallible.
Gay barber that gets caught up in an El Salvadorian supermax prison sounds like a fantastic premise for a great comedy movie.
It's like Barry. It's like, have you watched Barry?
I haven't seen this.
Bill Hader's show. It's amazing.
About the serial killer, right?
He's like a murderer. It's crazy.
Okay, yeah.
Bill Hader's. It's amazing, but there's a character just like that.
Pause it. That guy's got a tattoo. Put him on the list. Put that dude. Who is this guy?
Gang tattoo. I don't know if that's Serge. There's a few guys in there. Shane and then Devlin.
I don't know who's Shane, who's Devlin.
I'm not sure.
But that guy's got a tattoo. Maybe he's on the list too. I mean, listen, people are fallible.
Murderer. It's crazy.
Okay, yeah.
Bill Hader's. It's amazing, but there's a character just like that.
Yeah.
Good story.
Well, it goes back to the point you were just making about, lamenting, oh, well, if we do this, then Democrats will eventually use that against us. Well, I think people are undercounting the knock-on effects that wielding this type of political power has, right? Like, Democrats did all of these things in the Joe Biden administration, dating back to, you want to stretch it back to FDR or Woodrow Wilson or whatever, right? They were not concerned with what the right was going to do when the right got power. That wasn't a worry for them. Why? Because they knew if they exercised power in such a way, they could inculcate their interests and their people's, so that when we come in and we have a mandate like this on the right, breaking down that wall is proving really, really difficult. Yeah. Just ask the Trump administration.
Okay, so in other words, what he's saying is like people like Social Security. And they like it, and it's an effective policy, and destroying it is very difficult. Or, the net benefits of immigrants in this country, even undocumented ones, are literally, you can show it in numbers. Billions of dollars into the Social Security system they never take out. Work that, we saw what happened in Georgia when they tried to crack down on undocumented immigrants. It was a very, very poor peach crop that year. We know the benefits of immigration in this country. And so it's hard when you start to round up people and send them to supermax prisons because they have a tattoo on their wrist. But as long as there's a gay guy in there, I think we can all laugh about it.
Yeah, it could be like a comedy premise.
It could be a comedy premise.
Two different court cases, right? So this idea that power once wielded can be equally applied by the other side, I don't think that's true in the current system that we have. So it's smart for the Trump administration, as Tim was saying, to use as much power as possible to get back to those basics that we were talking about, right? Moral cohesion. To get back there, you need to destroy everything that they've built to inculcate their values.
Obviously, right now, if one of the questions I had for the trigonometry guys is, if with all these terror attacks that are happening against Tesla facilities, and we've already seen the summer of riots, so we're in this period of conflict. If the legislature of a state voted to protect these far left groups from their own law enforcement or from federal law enforcement, should Trump intervene? Invoke the insurrection.
Is this guy going and like having his classic sort of jerk off session about Civil War again?
Yes.
Is he doing this again? You're kidding me. You're kidding me. It's Civil War when the Democrats are in power. It's Civil War when the Republicans are in power. It's the only thing he can think about.
Yeah.
It really is like some type of fetish of his. Because, it's one of those things where he can just sort of speculate, and there's really, nobody can go like, dude, what are you talking about? Because it's all just speculation anyways. He doesn't have to talk about anything real.
I wonder why foreign countries would want to...
like what far left groups is he talking about that the state is going to we're going to give special privileges to the DSA?
To firebomb Tesla?
Well, I don't even understand what he's saying outside of that, or unless it's some type of code for what he's saying is you can't discriminate against gay people or trans people. I can't quite figure out what he's talking about here.
law enforcement. Should Trump intervene, invoke the Insurrection Act, and start enforcing the law federally through the National Guard?
I was hoping they were going to do that during the Black Lives Matter riots.
The Summer of Love.
Right. Yeah, like they didn't do it then. Right?
If the states then vote to bar the National Guard entry into their state and physically obstruct them, should Trump order the politicians arrested for levying war against the United States, seditious conspiracy?
Yeah, probably. I mean, that is.
I don't know that.
I don't know if it'd be the politically prudent thing to do. Would Trump theoretically be within his rights
This is
to
just
do it?
honestly like this is like literally like sitting in like somebody's basement in junior high. Maybe sophomore, junior year in high school. All right, guys, are we done with this? Can we go play D&D now? The only thing that Poole is doing here is trying to sort of like convince his audience that the idea of Trump invoking the Insurrection Act to essentially shut down civil liberties in this country is somehow justified. I mean, that's all he's really effectively doing. I don't know if he actually knows that, because I don't know that Tim functions that way, where he has anything type of, it's just like, this is what he is obsessed with.
This is like what Andrew Jackson's party was talking about. Like, can we do the, before the radical Republicans came on, say, can we enforce the fugitive slave laws? And if we don't, can we just go in there and enforce it? This is like basically secessionists in 2025, but they have power right now.
Yep. Is there any more of this that's worth watching? I don't even know who those two guys are.
That's about, what is his name? Bradley Devlin.
I don't know.
No.
I hope, the only thing I can say is I hope that they have to go in some type of porta potty. If I did my job right. Calling from a 631 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 631.
Hello, Sam. This is Aaron from North Carolina. How you doing?
Aaron from North Carolina. What's on your mind?
I wanted to give a bit of an update about what the banks are thinking. I'm an internal auditor at a bank, and obviously our work is discussing a lot of what's going on with the admin. And, rest assured, you could put your faith in the banks. Basically what they're saying is, even though there's, no regulatory bodies anymore, or they're all getting gutted, the laws are still on the books. So at least at my institution, they are going to do their best to follow the laws that are still on the books for now. But if the administration repeals any of those laws, you're pretty much screwed.
You're off to the races. I mean, I would imagine there are some banks where the compliance departments are like, we got to do this. This is the law. We have no idea what will happen. I mean, maybe we don't want to deal with like, I don't know, some even maybe third party lawyers, right? Could theoretically come in and sue in those instances. But yeah, I would imagine there's also some banks who are just like, we're off to the races here.
Yeah, and like I said, I can only speak for the place that I work, but who knows how long that's going to last. And, I imagine some of those other ghouls like Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan, something's telling me he's not dying to comply with laws he knows he's not going to truly have to comply with.
Okay, and so what else you got there?
I mean, honestly, like, your guess is as good as mine. It depends on your institution. It depends where you're banking. But, this is my job, so I can tell you for mine. But, like, you'll never know if you're getting screwed, if your bank is doing redlining, at least for the next 3 years. Like, there's going to be no way to know. Maybe your bank will still comply with the laws on the books. Maybe they won't. the only way you'll really know is if you start seeing on the news that they're letting go of all their compliance and audit teams.
What? Let me ask you this: if you were, maybe you don't feel comfortable answering this, but what bank would you tell your family members? I wouldn't go with that bank.
I really don't know. It's, I was not too afraid of calling Jamie Dimon a ghoul just a second ago.
Right,
So that kind of shows you what I think about J.P. Morgan. But
Wells Fargo has not had the greatest history. Bank of America has also not had the greatest history. HBC also not necessarily the greatest history, unless, of course, you show up with a lot of drug money cash and need to launder that. In that instance, they have been very, very helpful. Credit unions, what's your sense of credit unions?
Probably your best bet.
Yep.
Probably your best bet. And even, I know there's tons of regional banks out there. I know you're in New York. I'm originally from New York. I'm still with one of those regional banks. I'm sure those are a safer bet. Some of the bigger national ones, like, I don't know, Capital One a few months ago was hit by the CFPB for screwing people over interest rates. Like, I wouldn't trust a banker with my, certainly not with my money and not with anything less valuable than that.
Appreciate the call.
Of course.
All right. Let's go over this. This is a part of the Pod Save group. Guys.
Crooked Media.
Crooked Media. And they have a show called Offline, I guess. And it's hosted by, was it?
Favreau.
John Favreau. And who's the other guy? I feel like I may have interviewed him.
Max.
Yeah, we should have had that list.
Fisher?
Max Fisher. Yeah, I can't remember, but I definitely, recognize the name. And they are going over the Jubilee thing, in what very well may be the last time that we talk about my Jubilee appearance in the Surrounded. And they bring up a good point on this, but I want to, let's play it. They're talking about when, I had the Jubilee people let me make my contentions. And one of the contentions was, and I may be paraphrasing it because I don't remember exactly, was that unless you are a billionaire or a religious fundamentalist or theocrat, or a white nationalist, you made a mistake in voting for Donald Trump. And I guess the other way to phrase that is like, the only people who are really benefiting from the Trump administration are going to be white nationalists, billionaires, and theocrats. And what happened was the people who sat down to argue that contention did not argue that contention. They basically said, no, I'm a white nationalist or I'm a theocrat, and I think that's a good thing, and want to justify it. And I have said, I wasn't necessarily prepared for that response because I didn't realize that people would be so.
You thought it'd make people defensive.
I didn't realize that people would be like, I'm a xenophobe and I'm proud about it. Like literally, that's what she said.
Also, I'm from Canada, but
anyway. Also I'm from Canada. But be that as may, but this is their take on it.
He did say, like when he was talking with the woman who said, "What's wrong with xenophobic nationalism?" He's like, and some views are so out there that I was like, I would just rather. I think that most of the country agrees with me and not her, so I'm not going to go into them.
Right.
My only thought about that was not that I guess I'm just a glutton for punishment, but I was like, I actually think that we are, and this is one of the reasons why I liked the video and liked the whole exercise, is we are in a moment now where I think you do have to make the case for multiracial democracy.
I agree 100%.
And I think when we've had this whole debate about we can't make the election about democracy because people care about, you know, the cost of living and stuff like that. I think one of the problems there is that debate was us saying democracy's obviously good,
right,
and trying to convince people that the other side hates democracy.
Yep.
And we actually have to make the case for why democracy is good.
Mm-hmm.
And that could work better because it's not using the word democracy.
Right.
But we have to make a case for the system. We have to make a case for a multiracial country.
Right.
We have to make the case for all of these things because we think that they're basic.
They're not.
But like from that from that 20 Trump supporters who were younger, diverse, diverse in terms of gender identity, sexual orientation, race, gender. Like I do think that Democrats or folks on the left or whoever you want to call us, like we have to get back to basics and trying to make the case for our worldview, even the parts of our worldview that we assume most people agree with, and maybe most people do agree with, but clearly we are seeing a younger generation now, and you can see this again in the voting data, Gen Z.
I think this point is half correct. And I think it's very close. And I think it's also indicative, though, of what has been problematic with the Democratic Party. Now, I happen to think that the idea of there are more people out there who do want a multi-ethnic, multiracial democracy. They may not know that's the word for it. But I also do think that it is insufficient to say the word democracy. And that the problem was not that Democrats were deploying the word democracy and just assuming that people appreciated it. It is that, and this is where I think they're wrong here. They perceive the pitch about democracy and the pitch about, I think he said, I don't know how he referred to it.
Multiracial.
No, but the pitch about democracy and like the economy as being distinct entities. But I think that in the voters' minds, and that in people's minds, the problem with democracy, multiracial or whatever, is not because they don't understand, like, oh, if you understand how people, the value of a multiracial, multi-ethnic democracy is that it supposedly provides material benefit to the widest amount of people. There is no other point to a multiracial, multi-ethnic democracy if it does not provide material benefits to the widest amount of people possible. The reason why you have democracy is ultimately to have the least amount of disparity in political power and in economic power. That's it. There's nothing else. There's nothing else. And the problem with making that case is that they made a case in the Harris campaign to just simply say the word democracy. And the way that people associate the word democracy, multiracial, multi-ethnic, whatever, is, oh, you mean where there's this enormous wealth disparity? You mean where we get screwed and a certain group of people don't? That's the way it hits people. And the hard part about making the argument as to why a multi-ethnic democracy, multiracial democracy is good, the hard part about making that argument is if you don't have the ability to deliver on what it delivers. Because it's not, people don't care about some platonic idea of like, I live in a democracy. That's great.
It wasn't a sacrifice when they signed up for the democracy. It was, like you said, a way to further themselves materially.
We can see it. I mean, it's, this is why I harp on Reconstruction. Because what did they do and where did they fail in Reconstruction in an attempt to create a multi-ethnic, multiracial democracy? When you had these freedmen and all of these ex-slaves, we need to provide education, right? We need to provide money. And that's where the failure came in many ways. You had the Freedmen's Bank, but it wasn't sufficient. But you need to provide economic power. And at that time, you also need to provide actually like military power to protect people. In this instance, we're not there yet. We haven't regressed that far. But we have such an economic disparity that the concept in and of itself of a multi-ethnic or multiracial democracy, if it does not deliver the fundamental premise of that, which is a wide dispersion and redistribution of resources, political and economic, to as many people as possible within society, there's no value in it. It's a hollow shell. And so, like, in the course of making that argument, it doesn't, the argument itself, you need to pair that with, instead of like, this is a show me versus tell me situation. This is the thing, like, you know, whenever you're like writing a script or anything like that, it's show me versus tell me. It's also this, any type of writing. If you say multi-ethnic, multiracial democracy, that is a tell me. But if you deliver whatever it is, single payer healthcare, the ability for a free higher education, secure and affordable housing, et cetera, that is the show me of a multiracial democracy. That's the important part. You don't get a merit badge because you live in, and that's, in fact, that's been why you're seeing this sort of wrapping their arms around a theocracy or a white nationalism is all about. That's why their white nationalism also comes hand in hand with material promises. And the question is like, how do you provide those material benefits to as many people as possible without it being concentrated in the hands of an elite? And that is multiracial democracy. But that's the sequencing. You got to offer the material benefits of this thing because nobody cares about the imprimatur. There is no place. When you die, you don't get like, God's not sitting there going, well, you multiracial ethnic democracy, you get to go in. That doesn't happen. It has to come like, where's the beef? And that's the thing I think that has been fundamentally misunderstood by the well-intentioned parts of that world.
Yeah, you can't just insist upon it.
It doesn't mean anything. If you're going to sell what a multiracial, multi-ethnic democracy is, what you're selling is material benefits for people, despite the fact that we have this massive wealth disparity. And as a way of dealing with this massive wealth disparity. And then, that's all you need to start with. And you can drill down as technocratic as our Social Security tax touches 6, 7, 8% less of the nation's income than it did 30, 40 years ago. Or you can go on to housing's out of reach. Or, we have $1 trillion worth of student debt. I mean, all of these things must be aggressively and not just as a campaign rhetoric. There needs to be legislation. There needs to be doing these things. Now, obviously, we can't do that right now. And it's a reason why I think you see Sanders and AOC stuff resonate more, because they're not they are out there, and they make no doubt about it. I think like Sanders is out there, and his number one thing is like, we're going to lose the democracy that we have, as insufficient as it is. But I don't think that's what he's going out there selling. He's going out there selling material benefits for people. And that's the value of a democracy, that it provides material benefits for the greatest amount of people. Now, there are other systems where arguably it could provide even more. But that's why we have a democracy as opposed to the system we left behind, which is oligarchic. And the problem with an oligarchic system is that wealth and material benefits are concentrated in fewer hands. That's it. Like, there's no mystery here. It's just a hard argument to make on behalf of at least the people they're advocating for, Democrats, largely because too often they go astray from that. Kamala Harris had the opportunity to do it. And then all of a sudden, Mark Cuban came in, and her brother-in-law from Uber came in and was like, man, I don't think so.
And it's only by sort of bleaching out the meaning of democracy where it's inclusive of people like Mark Cuban, where white xenophobic nationalism makes sense to people because they have the benefit of people not knowing what that is. Like, what is a segregationist society? Because I'm surprised at how many people in that room weren't immediately repulsed by the idea that we should just have a white culture. That's segregated baseball. Like that, nobody actually wants that besides like a fraction of freaks that are white nationalists in this country.
Yeah. And I think like largely you can do that, but you need to start putting meat on the bones again of what a multiracial, multi-ethnic democracy means. If it doesn't mean redistribution from an unequal society, what's the value of it? You don't get a special cookie because you live in a democracy.
It has to include quality of life.
You actually have to get the cookies.
Yeah, quality of life. Like that's the thing is, anytime we've expanded democracy or people have widely demanded, it's because it comes hand in hand. You don't even need to insist on the quality of life improvement.
Yep. All right, let's take one more call. Calling from a 438 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 438.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, this is Tammy from Montreal.
Tammy from Montreal?
Yeah, exactly. Or Okami for the people from the chat.
Okay. Tammy.
Discord.
Montreal.
Yeah. First things first, I promised somebody on the Discord that I was going to form a bumbler that does our D&D.
Yeah.
On Discord is formally inviting you to come and participate, Sam. That's the first thing.
Into the Discord.
Second, into the Discord.
Well, my hope is
that's the first thing.
I hope to have a little more free time soon, but we'll see.
Okay, awesome. Second thing is I'm an indigenous person in Canada, and I wanted to bring good news to you guys because I'm pretty sure you have not heard about the cows and plows settlement.
No.
Okay, so basically what happened is back in the 1800s, Canada promised to give indigenous reserves cows and things for doing like I'm French, so my English is not great, but basically doing land, like taking care of growing crops and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they stole land that they were using for hunting and gathering. So they basically said, give us our land, we're going to help you be able to farm. They did not take care of that. They did not hold their
side of the bargain.
The side of the bargain, exactly. And that caused a lot of poverty. Yeah, a lot of poverty for the reserves here. So what happened is a bunch of treaty members sued the Canadian government and were allocated $1.7 billion to be redistributed in the reserves that sued. So yeah, we won.
Oh, that's
basically.
awesome.
Yeah. And a lot of the reserves, I don't know if you know this, but they don't have access to clean water. and stuff. So a lot of money is going into not only like paying retribution to all the suffering that happened, but also building
infrastructure.
Infrastructure, exactly. So yeah.
Oh, that's
and
fantastic.
Everything that's happening, I thought I would bring good news to you guys.
Oh, that's great.
Cheers.
I'm sorry. What's your name again?
Tammy.
It's Tammy.
Yeah.
All right.
Or Camille.
Cammy. Okay. All right. Thanks, Cammy. Well, say hi to the Discord for me.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Great call.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. That's good news. That's good. It's nice to get some good news.
Yeah.
All right. She was quick. Let's do one more. I'm sorry, guys. One more. Calling from a 501 area code. You are the final caller for reals today.
Man, that feels special. This is Nathan from Illinois.
Nathan from Illinois. What's on your mind?
So, man, with the right wing headspace, the blindly just following things, like their leader, Donald Trump. So, like, when I was a kid in Arkansas, we had some really bad weather one year, and we had to hunker down in our closet in the middle of the apartment. And so my guardian decided to read out of the Bible to, like, calm us all down, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And guess what book he chose to read?
Was it something like about like all the fire and brimstone? Was it like not like what's the ugliest in the New Testament?
Not new.
Okay.
Leviticus?
Job.
Oh, Job. Okay.
Job. A book where, just for listeners who don't know, God and Satan basically pick a guy, and Satan says, if we treat this guy bad enough, if you treat him bad enough, he's finally going to have enough and say, I'm done worshiping God. And God says, bet. So he destroys this guy's whole life, family. He kills them one at a time, the worst ways. Like,
did you find that calming in that moment?
Man, no.
Lightning is flashing
am I the
outside.
am I the guy getting tested, or am I like an extra in this show? So, yeah, man, and that just seems to way. I mean, they are totally. I actually don't have contact with them anymore, but last I knew, they're totally on the Trump train, and that's the kind of like, hey guys, haven't you had enough? And they're like, no, I just gotta. It's this guy, like he said.
I mean, look, it is not a coincidence. I mean, I've mentioned many times Bob Altemeyer's research from the University of Manitoba. He's since passed away.
Mm.
In the summer of 2016, he was writing, I think it was on Daily Kos at that time, we must defeat this Trump coalition. He had done research that showed in the North America, the continent of North America, there are about 25% of right-wing authoritarians. His research, this is over the course of 20, 30 years, his research also showed there were some left-wing authoritarians, but far less in the population. And the reason why there's more right-wing authoritarians, it makes a lot of sense, is because they are raised, and these people, you know, and it's not just a correlation, and it's not simply, I mean, it's a correlation and a causation. If you are a religious fundamentalist, you are trained, I think the best fundamentalists are this way, and if you are even like sort of like a decent one, you get trained in this, specifically to essentially be authoritarian followers, to be authoritarian. You're not an authoritarian leader, you're just you're an authoritarian in terms of mindset, which means that, like, I am taking an edict from, in this instance, invisible guy in the sky, as communicated through, you know, the person who has deemed himself to be the arbiter of it, and I follow that. And it just goes, you know, and where you fall in that hierarchy, which some people also call a patriarchy, because that's all it is. It's just a hierarchy where it's always the guy who's in charge, because of course, that way you get to be closer to the person who is getting the secret message from the invisible guy in the sky. And in this instance, Donald Trump just fits in nicely. He just becomes like their pastor or whatnot. And so that's
exactly it. And I don't want to beat on religion. If people find peace in religion, that's great. If it were just them talking to their God and right back, and no middle-aged pedophile in between, that would be dope. That would be the best.
I am right there with you. I have no problem with people. I mean, I have no problem with people who are whose religion guides their life. I do think there are certain circumstances where people are getting abused, frankly, in some of these fundamentalist religions. But I don't know, outside of the way that we've structured civil society, there's a way to basically, deal with that. But the fact of the matter is, okay, I am largely live and let live when it comes to that kind of stuff. But the problem is when someone's notion of having a corner on the absolute truth, so much so that it's delivered by a special, invisible person in the sky, it becomes problematic. And it also
the invisible person in the sky. It's the person on the earth.
Well, that's the secret they don't want you to know.
Absolutely.
But appreciate the call. It's a good point.
Hey, thanks so much for taking it.
All right, thanks, man. Folks,
It just reminds me of a point about the there's a Native American sort of origin story where a figure emerges from the underworld to a sort of pristine nature where there's all this hunt and chase that can be done, and they bring it back. They kill a deer and bring it back to everyone in the underworld, which is a political message is much different than the Adam and Eve story of, hey, this is God's property. You need to tend to it, but don't go outside of the owner of the said property's instructions, or things get really bad for you.
That's right. The origin story is basically, let me show you how discipline works. And also, let me show you who's going to be in second place in the hierarchy that I create on Earth.
Isn't that a good consolation for you, young men?
I wonder if a woman wrote that story.
As God did.
Folks, that ends the phone call portion of the program. I didn't realize this. Desert Lefty says Altemeyer published an update to the authoritarians, which included a small biography of Trump called Authoritarian Nightmare. It's very illuminating to everything Trump is and might, and some provide ability for people to dispel his mythos for their loved ones. I will check that out. Bitter Bernie Bro. Sam, did Crimmins shape any of your perspective towards Christian authoritarianism, or did you shape his? You're referring to Barry Crimmins, who was a great political comic. When I started in Boston, he was one of the best political comedians that existed, and one of the only genuinely ones. And this was in 91, 90. Barry influenced me in many ways. I don't know if it was specifically on authoritarianism. I cannot imagine that I influenced him, although I guess it's possible, but I doubt it. But it's possible. Goat Starer. I'm a religious person, but I'm not holding out for a strong man, Jesus, to come back and solve problems. This place sucks. If I was Jesus, I'd make a beeline to the Bahamas. Nicole, ugliest book in the New Testament is the book of Revelation by far. It's the one of the book of NT that turns Jesus into a murdering psychopath. Frankly, the most violent book of the Bible.
Isn't it the last one too, Revelation?
Gold Rush John, kid, let me put you to sleep by reading you The Art of the Deal. Jonathan Armstead, one thing that makes a multiracial democracy hard is that racism is so baked into it that even Dems, like the Pod Save America folks, are hesitant to talk about the importance of social programs or the safety net. Republicans feed their base bullworth that things like Medicare, Social Security, free school lunches, whatever, aren't there to help anyone who falls on hard times, but are entitlement programs for black, brown, and immigrant folks. I think there's a fusion that needs to be made that makes white folk realize they have more in common with the people who get those programs, as opposed to thinking of themselves as temporarily embarrassed millionaires. Sorry for the rant and sounding too much like Bullworth.
I think it's a class problem.
Well, that's what you're describing is that it's a class issue.
None of those people come from backgrounds where they ever had to rely on those programs. It's all theoretical to them.
Oh, you think that the Dems don't understand
the
it?
Podjons, like those types of folks, I don't think they come from poverty or knew what, need to be on Medicaid or something like that was. I don't think they have a real relationship to that sort of stuff.
And so they're afraid, so
they just can't message it. It's not real, it's not an acute, it's sort of the same problem with the whole.
But I don't think it's a question of they need to have experienced that to be able to message it. I wasn't on Medicaid or Medicare, and I understand that you cannot offer some type of system of government and then also fail, have that divorced from what it ultimately, the benefit of that government is. I mean, the benefit of a multiracial democracy is supposed to be not that everybody simply has political, some type of everybody has the ability to vote. I mean, what does it mean? If you're going to participate in a society, you want to get returns on that. And it's not just a sense of feeling good. What society are we going to live in where the vast majority of people are genuinely listened to and they don't get any benefits? That you have this type of concentration of wealth, and the political power follows after that. But put that aside, there is no such a thing as a functioning democracy that has this level of concentrated wealth. Those two things cannot exist. It does not make sense that you would have the vast majority of people say, I'm good living in deprivation. I'm good in living in economic insecurity. I'm good in not knowing whether I'm going to have health care. I'm good in not, and worrying about not having housing. I'm good in that, if my kids get properly educated, we're all going to go broke. As long as we're living in a multi-ethnic democracy and some people are getting the benefit, I'm good with that. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah, the actual sale was we live in a multi-ethnic democracy and our quality of life is better than anywhere else in the world.
Well, the value of a multi-ethnic democracy is that our quality of life is better because of it. I mean, that's it. There's no other, surprise here. Alan from Denver, what about expanding the state government to including everyone with a state ID? The separation of people and the government is naturally oppressive. I'm not 100% sure I follow that, but Bingo Dango, video recording of masked ICE agents disappearing a Tufts PhD student was just released and it's terrifying. No less than a half a dozen masked undercover goons descend on this poor woman. She attended Gaza protests in the past, which seemed to be why she was targeted. This is so twisted. And frankly, hate to throw down my Jew card, but any Jew who sees this type of stuff and isn't whoa, this is problematic, and to realize how twisted it is, that it's a function of protests against what Israel's doing or in favor of some type of freedom, autonomy, equality for Palestinians, in some type of blinking red light doesn't go off. I just don't understand how that happened.
Her name is Rumisa Ozturk. She's a student from Turkey, and her lawyer doesn't know where she is. They have no idea where she is. ICE says only that she is in the agency's custody.
It's just so twisted. Jefferson Davis, people are fallible. Some people are just phalluses, like Tim when he removes his stinky hat.
People are follicle.
Zane, sometimes you're just going to ship people to a labor camp for life. No biggie. We can fix it after. Hope your irreparable damage isn't that bad.
I mean, Phil Labonte is the ultimate idiot. Former, some kind of band he was in, and now he's just Tim Pool's sort of coffee guy.
But the level of stupidity. I mean, that's the problem with Tim. Like, I don't think he wants anybody smarter than him on this show. Like, I feel like that's why you see Ian so little these days.
Oh, yeah, Moonlord?
Because Ian would sometimes make points, and it would be the only one you'd hear who wouldn't suck up to Tim.
He broke containment on some of the information controls that they
Exactly. So Tim's got to surround himself with people who are stupider than him. And that is, believe me, that is like to squeeze in people who are stupider about stuff than Tim, but also have the capacity to find the studio and don't get lost every day on their way to work.
Can we get 3 more nasty, belligerent white guys in here, please?
Rana, as a green card holder, I think working professionals with graduate degrees like myself aren't feeling super worried. But that is only because we command higher salaries and have more means to fight this legally. Doesn't mean that I don't have an escape plan, though. No foreigner is truly safe. I mean, I think that's the case. I think that's the case. Tater Tot, you think Goldberg releases that signal chat if there's a Democratic president? Oh, my God. I think he stays on it. Jester from Jersey, Florida special elections looking more and more in reach. They happen April 1st. Folks, you can make this a phone bank. Oh, yeah, let me say this. This is important. Oh, shoot, it's 2:50. Look, I'm going to do this quick. I'm sorry, guys. There were 2 special elections in Pennsylvania. I think 2. That are important results. Let's just pop this up. Do we have like one was in Pennsylvania's House District 35. This is going to maintain control with the Democrats in the Pennsylvania House. Dan Gonyar won 63% to Charles Davis, Republican, 35%. This is a 12-point overperformance from 2024. It's a special election. 12-point overperformance from where Kamala Harris was. Harris, this was a plus 16 Harris district. He wins by 28%. This is also amazing. In Pennsylvania's Senate, 36th. This was a Trump plus 15 district. And it appears that the Democrat, guy named Malone, won with like 50.3% of the vote. I don't know what the final tally is here. But even if the guy, I don't know if there's going to be a recount. Even if he wins just by a hair or loses by a hair, this was a plus 15 Trump district. This is a Republican, like, pretty close to blood red district. And this is not a terribly surprising dynamic if you consider that Harris's voters were the high information voters, were the high propensity, high information voters, broadly speaking, broad. We saw some of this during Trump's first term. There's 2 things that are going on here. One is Republican voters are less inclined to come out unless Donald Trump is on the top of the ticket. 2 is Democratic voters, Democratic leaning voters, Democratic supporting voters, however you want to articulate it, are high propensity voters. They're going to come out more. So all these special elections are by definition low turnout elections. Off-year elections are low turnout elections. I'm talking about like in 2026 as opposed to 2028. Are lower turnout elections. These are important opportunities for Democrats to pick up. So on April, is it 4th? Is the, or is it April 1st, the Wisconsin election? Musk has put in like literally $10 million into that race, maybe more. This is for the Supreme Court. You got to get out and vote. You can do it today. Also, there are 2 special elections in Florida that at any other time, it wouldn't even contemplate the idea that Democrats could win them. But they are in, oh shoot, I don't have it with me here. In Gates's old district, I think it's the 1st, Florida 1st and 6th, I think it is. And those are April 1st. Is that right? And very important to get out and vote. Musk just dropped another, like, I don't know, tens of thousands of dollars into that race because they're freaking out a little bit. It's highly unlikely that the Democrat's going to win in either one of those. It's possible. Both of those elections are April 1st, Tuesday. But here's the thing. Why are they worried about that election? Usually the Republican wins by like, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 points in these districts. It's possible the Democrat could win, but it's unlikely. But why are they so concerned? Because they are afraid if the margin is too small, that it's going to scare Republican lawmakers in the House. This is the game right now in terms of impacting legislation. There's a lot of other things that you got to do. You got to organize. At times you got to protest. At times you just got to, like, I don't know, throw a stick in the gears, see some ICE agents, I don't know, call into a hotline, whatever it is. But from an electoral standpoint, the value of a margin in these races, even if the Republican wins, has an outsized impact on the behavior of other lawmakers. It scares them. The argument becomes a little bit harder because they're like, wait a second. If the standard margin in which the algorithm where Democratic voters are making up 15 point, 16 point differences, even if they're losing, but they're gaining an extra 16 points, somebody who's in like a plus 10 district Republican starts getting nervous. If I'm in a plus 5 Republican district, I'm crapping my pants. And all of a sudden, the threat from Elon Musk that he's going to dump $1 million into my primary race, well, it doesn't matter if I win the primary. If this is what was a plus 5 Republican district is now a plus 10 Democrat district and the off-year election. That's the way they think. So these special elections mean something. They are a tool in which you can influence legislation, as bizarre as that sounds, and as ineffective. I mean, it's not, this is a blunt instrument. But if one of these races in these districts that are so heavily, in Pensacola, man, the idea of a Democrat winning in that area is just beyond. But if somebody gets that race within 5 or 10 points, there's going to be a lot of Republicans in purple or even like rouge districts very, very nervous.
I mean, to go back to the Tea Party analogy, it would be like when the Republicans got Scott Brown to win early in Obama's administration.
In fact, that prevented the ACA from moving forward there. That prevented a lot of stuff, that Scott Brown thing. It really, really hampered them big time. But even if you don't win, it still impacts the legislation. All right, one more. Jerry at the beach. Sorry, babe. I thought I was making dinner plans with you, but your single friend's number got sucked in instead. Also, we will be bombing Yemen in 35 minutes. Matt, good job today. Folks, on Monday of next week, we'll introduce our new producer. Well, nobody responded. Emma, good job in it. Stentia. See you tomorrow.